Hey everybody, here we are again, all the way at number 22 of the draft analysis series on NCPL's Commander Draft. Today we're going to be looking at Reggie. So he drafted Mega Sceptile, Talonflame, Steelix, Aromatisse, Quagsire, Hitmonchan, Chinchino, Silvally Dark, and Chimeco. I'm not sure how they pronounce it, but yeah. So this was I know I've said this about a lot of teams, but because the reason that I say this about a lot of teams is I don't really know too much in depth about them until I either verse them or I'm doing these analysis on them. So this was a team that I thought was not a very great team until I started prepping for it and doing this analysis for it. It's quite hard to deal with some of these threats, and one of them I want to mention before I get into his score and all that was Hitmonchan. I was thinking this Pokemon was going to be, fine to deal with, and it was a complete nuisance. So the bulk that it had on defense and special defense, plus its EV spread and its All Vest, just made it really annoying, especially with this coverage. So and there's some really great picks in here that Reggie obviously was able to see in the lower tier of Pokemon. So I scored his team at overall 39.5. I think it's a really balanced team with pretty good recovery, not too much hazards, but very good hazard removal, good speed, good offense, good defense, just all around a good team. Momentum is the only thing that's lacking. Just because there's not a lot of volt turning, which is fine. He's got a lot of momentum on the setup side though, and snowball. So first off, we are going to look at his offense, which I scored a 7.5. So his offense is going to consist mostly of these Pokemon: Mega Sceptile, Talonflame, Hitmonchan, Chinchino, Silvally Dark, and potentially in some cases Aromatisse. So, and even Chimeco, but that's generally not gonna be all the time or as often. So starting with Mega Sceptile, which is his captain, which again I thought this captain was not going to be a very good captain, but just looking at what it has in its moveset and how it's performed. I mean, I'm not scoring the offense based on his performance. But just going through what Sceptile can actually do, I thought its move pool was a lot less, and then of course we have Hidden Power, which adds to that. So at 427 speed and 389 special attack, this is humongous for this type of draft. To have that speed and that special attack, this is a wall breaker right off the bat. It doesn't need Life Orb or Specs to be one. It can easily just fire off Dragon Pulses or Leaf Storms and really blow up in some big holes in teams, if not resisted. So his moveset though, which I was quite surprised by, I mean, it's not humongous by any means, but it is a lot better than I expected. So you have Leaf Storm, Dragon Pulse, Focus Blast, Hidden Power, of course, Giga Drain on the special side, and then of course on the physical side, which I really wasn't thinking, because he can be ran both. His physical attack is really not that terrible. It's at 110, so that's pretty good. That's over 300. But just going back, looking here, he has Drain Punch, Outrage, Swords Dance, which is really phenomenal. To have Swords Dance, that makes it a lot more potent as a physical Pokemon. Throat Chop, Crunch, Earthquake, and Rock Slide. And then for recovery, he has Leech Seed and Synthesis, which he could easily throw on 3 attacks, and then either Leech Seed or Synthesis to be annoying. If they don't have a Grass type, throw on Leech Seed. If they do, you throw on Synthesis. Keep that Sceptile, which is going to be your cleaner / wall breaker, depending how you build your team, healthy, right? And then you have Talonflame. So another Pokemon on his team with really high speed, reaches 366. I have the base written down, but I never actually go with that. More than that. 386. Wow. Okay. Yeah. So much higher. So 386, 81 attack, 74 special attack. So right off the bat, this is showing me that this can be physical or special. It doesn't really matter. He doesn't hit super hard in either. it's his attack moves that have really strong base power and stabs, so that's where his damage is going to come from. Having access to bulk up and sword stance just elevate this even more. And then physical side, he has Brave Bird, Flare Blitz, Dual Wing Beat, Flame Charge, U-Turn, and then I'm surprised. Yeah. Anyways, and then on the special side, which is a lot less, but of course you have hidden power. You have Flamethrower / Overheat and Hurricane. So those are really strong stabs that makes it easily be able to run in the special attack side if you need it. If you don't want to be taking all that chip damage, since Talonflame is already 4x4 weak to rocks, you might not want that extra chip damage just in case that knockoff hits them. But generally, knockoff is kind of deterred on Talonflame, depending on what Pokemon is doing the knockoff, because Flame Body is something that could be on Talonflame. But for a physically offensive or especially offensive, I think it doesn't matter if it's physical or special. It's flying type moves, yeah. Yeah, so Gale Wings, if Talonflame is at full health, its flying type attacks will have a priority of 1. So priority Brave Bird, priority Hurricane. So the thing about that is that's a nerf that happened. It didn't used to have to be full health. You could just, your flying moves always had priority. The thing about the Brave Bird is you only get priority once. And if you're going for a cleaning set, Hurricane is actually really nice because you don't have to worry about losing that priority. I mean, obviously you have to worry about the accuracy, and same goes for Dual Wing Beat. You have to worry about the accuracy and less power, but you don't have to worry about losing that priority, which is really nice. That really elevates his team speed tier, having that priority and speed is really nice. And then he has priority in a couple other ones as well, which I'll get into. Then you have Hitmonchan, which I really underestimated this Pokemon. I think some people who might have, because I think this was drafted not super early, this was really underrated. Because I think Hariyama was in the tier above, and Hitmonchan is like a cheap Hariyama almost. Obviously it doesn't have thick fat or anything like that, and doesn't have nearly the same attack. But it's bulky. It's really bulky. Despite it having 50 HP and Hariyama having 120, it has 79 defense and 110 special defense, so its defenses are much higher. And the spread that they have on here is extremely annoying to deal with. I remember practicing with it on Showdown. 252 HP, 72 attack, 136 special defense, 48 speed. And then if you don't have any fighting type resistances and it's hitting neutral, Drain Punch is just recovering. He's chipping you down. He can switch out. He can Wish Pass with Aromatisse on his team here. Just a very annoying Pokemon to deal with. Very, very reliable Pokemon to switch into, I'd say. Obviously not into like Psychic or Fairy moves. You know what I'm saying? Hitmonchan having access to Iron Fist, Rapid Spin, Drain Punch, or Close Combat, Throat Chop, Mach Punch, Bullet Punch, both boosted by Iron Fist, which is nice. Bulk Up / Agility, so you could run a Bulk Up Agility set if you're going for a cleaning thing. So this is kind of what I'm going to get into. A lot of his sets, a lot of his Pokemon, it's natural or standard sets are not like setup, but they perform really well with setup. As some of them have in previous seasons have been very setup based Pokemon, so Talonflame was one of them, which I'll get in on the defensive side, because that Talonflame was meant, the set that I'll get into was a defensive set to switch in on something, absorb the hit no problem, and then set up and usually sweep with that priority Gale Wings. So you have, Bulk Up Agility, Earthquake, Rock Slide, Fake Out, Fire Punch, Ice Punch, Thunder Punch. So I mean that coverage is super annoying. For some reason I think I forgot a couple of moves here. No, I didn't. I thought it learned Poison Jab or Iron Hit, but it doesn't. Anyways, you can see the coverage and why that can be such an annoying Pokemon, especially if it gets in for free or if it's led by Reggie, or comes in on a neutral or resisted attack. very annoying to deal with. It's going to recover off that damage that it takes, or potentially, gather up a kill or a KO, right? Then we have Chinchino, which we all know. Although it's been an unlucky Pokemon in some scenarios here, it is still a really good pick, a really viable pick. Having Technician and Skill Link, generally Skill Link's the one you're going to be running, since you can amplify Tail Slap, Triple Axle, Bullet Seed, and I think it has Rock Blast as well. But it also has Knockoff, U-Turn, Gunk Shot, Aqua Tail, and a couple other just like moves. But generally you're going to see Tail Slap, Triple Axle, Bullet Seed, Rock Blast, Knockoff, U-Turn, and potentially Gunk Shot are going to be your most common ones, since they hit the hardest. You're using the Skill Link ability, so a really good Pokemon to lead with. It covers a lot of options. It can knock off a defensive Pokemon's leftovers, which is important. Or if it's an unsafe lead versus lead, you can just U-turn out, since its speed equals out to 361, which is very high in this draft. Generally outspeeding almost anything in the draft, if not scarfed. So then you have Silvally Dark, which you guys know. We all know Silvally Dark. All the Silvallis in this draft, they hit very hard with that multi-attack. That SD multi-attack is it's like a nuke. So, but it has that coverage as well. On the special side, you have Flamethrower, Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, Draco Meteor, and then on the physical side, you can SD, of course, Explosion, Rock Slide, Zen Headbutt, a couple other physical moves. Like U-turn and stuff like that, but generally you're going to see like multi-attack, coverage, defog, U-turn, or parting shot, something like that, right? So as you've seen, Reggie does like to use this offensively. Very good offensive Pokemon. That 120 Dark type is really nice. And then last but not least, I will mention them since they are worth mentioning because they are a threat. You definitely have to prepare for these Pokemon. As they can be very potent. So Aromatisse, as I got into with Calvin's team, actually gets access to Nasty Plot, which is ridiculous. We all know how hard Moonblast hits at base 95. All fairies usually have pretty good special attack. So Nasty Plot, Moonblast will definitely, wall break or just Oko Pokemon, especially in this draft. But the set that I really want to mention here is either Calm Mind, Nasty Plot, Draining Kiss, Refresh, and then whatever coverage move you need, whether that's Mystical Fire or if you want Wish for that extra recovery. Just a very potent set, very hard to deal with if there isn't a strong resistance to this, or if the Pokemon or if the opponent's draft doesn't have a hard counter resist with reliable recovery. I mean, you could even stall them out. I think Draining Kiss has quite a few PP. Actually doesn't. I'm quite surprised. But I guess that's recovering 70% of the damage. It's be pretty OP if it had like 20 PP. So I wouldn't recommend trying to PvP stall, especially if the Pokemon has pressure. But very, very potent set. Mega Altaria, definitely the pinnacle of this set using Refresh, Dragon Dance, Pixelate, Return. But getting that recovery after a Nasty Plot, this thing's going to hit really hard, have reliable recovery. I mean, you could just run Draining Kiss, Moonblast if you needed that extra damage instead of the recovery. Because Draining Kiss will be reliable, especially after a Nasty Plot or even a Calm Mind if they don't have a hard resist / counter. So a very potent set. I'm dying to see this set in the playoffs, either by, I think, Reggie, Calvin, and then somebody else I just mentioned has the Odino. Flo and Jonas both have Odino, and they both have access to the set. What makes these Pokemon able to use it is their bulk. Aromatisse obviously having way less defensive bulk, so it makes it a little bit harder to run, but still a very strong set. And then you have Chimecho, which Cosmic Power, Stored Power, very broken behind screens if you don't have something to haze or immune. So, but that's it for offensive Pokemon. I'm not going to mention Steelix and Quagsire. I mean, they can be brought offensively, but generally, I mean, yeah, you could bring Choice Banded Steelix, but really, realistically, this Pokemon is going to be coming to set up rocks or resist fairy type moves with Assault Vest. I don't really see that Steelix or Quagsire coming as like really big offensive threats. So Iron Defense Steelix is probably the only offensive option that I'm going to be seeing, or that's reliable. But on the defensive side, I scored his team I scored his defense an 8.5. So defensively, you could do some weird defensive set with Sceptile. Definitely a huge waste of its offensive prowess. But I will mention Talonflame. This set was really prominent when Gale Wings was considered broken. I can't remember exactly, but I think it was max special defense, max HP, Will-O-Wisp, Roost, Bulk Up, and then Brave Bird is what it was. Really ridiculous set. In this draft, I find that an extremely potent set, since there isn't strong wall breakers or insanely strong counters. Of course, there's a few, but there's not an abundance like there was before and there is now in the OU tiers. But basically, you're bulking up. You can use Sword Stance as well, but the bulk up set was meant to just make it really impossible to deal with. Toxic being the only thing to really stop it. So that's why I guess it kind of worked better on the ladder, because you'd obviously have to worry about Toxic in the draft, but still a very potent set to wall break with. And then, of course, being that bulky, having Flame Body or Gale Wings, whatever it is, Gale Wings is the set. It's something to mix up your opponent with, especially if you don't really need Talonflame as a defogger or something like that. If you can run Silvally or Rapid Spin on Hitmonchan, which this is really great about Reggie's team, is his team allows his Pokemon to run things like that. So and the recovery, the Wish Passing by Chimecho, it's going to allow Aromatisse to be offensive if it wants to be. So but yeah, moving on from the Talonflame, we talked about it has Will-O-Wisp, Toxic, Defog, U-Turn, Taunt, Tailwind, and then reliable recovery and roots. But next we have Steelix with Sturdy. Defensively, this is a Stealth Rocker. He's probably going to have Stealth Rocks, Toxic, Heavy Slam, Earthquake. In some cases, he could run Iron Defense Body Press with Rocks and whatever other option, or Rest Sleep Talk, Iron Defense Body Press. But that's really it for Steelix defensively. He's going to probably be switching into resisted attacks, Fairy types. That's really what he's going to be used for. And then you have Aromatisse, the staple defensive Pokemon of his team here, able to switch into physical or special attacks, depending on the EV spread. Having Heal Bell, Wish Passing, Draining Kiss, Toxic, very strong option to keep his team healthy, as fairies are pretty hard to deal with in this draft. So that paired with his team's already decent recovery, make it really hard to take down his team if you're not a bulkier team, or a team that just has really strong wall breaking potential. And then after Aromatisse, you have Quagsire. Quagsire having Water Absorb and Unaware is great. There's some really strong water types in this draft. And then, of course, 90% of the people like to set up in this draft for that high differential. Don't know if that's going to be the case in playoffs. So Unaware is a really, really strong option in a lot of cases. Although if you're choosing not to run Unaware and you need to run Water Absorb, Quagsire still has access to Haze, Scald to burn them, reliable recovery and recover, counter to fire back a physical attack even stronger, Yawn and Toxic. So a very good option on his team to help. It's going to help him in conjunction with, absorb those water attacks that Talonflame doesn't want, immune those electric attacks Talonflame doesn't want, and then coincide with Mega Sceptile as well. So very good piece in his defensive unit here. And then we have Silvally Dark, which we all know what it does defensively: defog, U-turn, parting shot, multi-attack. It does have Toxic and Thunderwave as well if needed, which I can see this being an option for him, Thunderwave on Silvally, to make sure that those speedier threats, which might not come often, but there are some out there, he might need to T-Wave if he figures out there's a Scarfer on the team. And last but definitely not least, this is one of my favorite picks on his team and one of my favorite finds in the draft. In the draft as a whole, Chimecho, a A Bronzong, a cheap Bronzong, really. It doesn't have the Steel type, which kind of sucks, but has Levitate, which is really nice on a Pokemon that's actually defensive and not like extremely weak to something else, i.e. Rotom Heat, having to run Stealth or Heavy Duty Boots, but Levitate, and then Earthquake. Earthquakers generally have Stone Edge or Rock Slide. But anyways, it's defensive options: Healing Wish, Thunder Wave, Defog, Heal Bell, Hypnosis, Screens, Wish, Toxic, Yawn. So being able to have Defog, Wish, and Heal Bell, this frees up a lot of slots on his team, like a lot. This is going to allow Savali to be offensive, Aromatisse to be offensive, Talonflame to be offensive, Hitmonchan to have 4 attacks instead of 3 in Rapid Spin. Just an extremely great Pokemon to pick up in the Tier 5 section. Just super incredible pick here. A really great find. Its base stats also are really great. Just want to read them out for you guys here. So you see how good of a Pokemon this is in the draft. 75 HP, 80 defense, 95 special attack, 90 special defense, and 65 speed. So this is a really great Pokemon overall. Having access to Wish, Protect, Heal Bell, Screens, Toxic, Yawn, T-Wave, and then Healing Wish on top of it all to make sure, put that Healing Wish on, get it into Mega Sceptile so he can sweep, or, if your Talonflame's Thunder Wave, throw it on a Talon Wave. Just an overall really great last pick for Reggie here to really glue his whole team together. One of the most balanced teams that I think I've scored on here. Overall, really great defensive unit here, very hard to break. But we're gonna move on to speed now. So I rated his speed an 8.5. So his speed is very fast. It's just a little bit different than like Matt's and stuff like that, where all across the board it's fast. It doesn't go like really fast, really slow, like we'll get into on Reggie's team here. Of course I didn't write a speed right up. Throw hazards in them. But Mega Sceptile reaching 427, Talonflame 386, Hitmonchan I believe is base 76, so that's gonna reach 251 in Adamant, and in Jolly that's 276, so not bad. Doesn't hit that 284 mark, which is a really good place to reach. But you have Chinchino that reaches 361, Savali Dark, which reaches 317, and then Chimecho as a defensive option actually is not too bad. Having base 65 speed, if you needed to run it versus a slow team offensively, this will reach at a timid 251, so not terrible. This also, being at base 65, is going to allow Reggie to speed creep certain defensive options if he needs to, even speed creep some offensive options. I mean, you guys got to think that this actually outspeeds things like, offensive things like Arctozolt. I won't get into too much here, but I just want to read off some offensive threats that this could outspeed just by speed creeping. Speed creeping Adamant Arctozolt. I definitely wouldn't recommend speed creeping Jolly, just because that's quite a bit of EVs into speed. But speed creep Slowking, speed, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not going to go dive too deep into this, but base 65 speed does allow it to speed creep a little bit. So another plus here to the Chimecho. But yeah, so on that speed, he does have T-Wave available to him to control that speed if he needs to. He generally isn't going to need this too often because his team is quite fast on the offensive side. But having such high speed in some of these Pokemon is going to allow him to speed creep a lot of different things and run those HP EVs, make his Pokemon just a little bit bulkier. Something that's really, I guess, might separate newer players from that next level is doing that speed creep. So if Chinchino has 361 speed, for example, and you're versing a team that's quite slow, I mean, you don't need to run max speed. So you look at that team's fastest threat, and let's say it's the fastest threat is 280. Okay, so we'll go to Chinchino. So, and you see on your opponent's team, 280 is the fastest speed. So you put 0 speed into Cinccino, okay? Actually, 0 speed, but we'll go adamant. And then, so 280. We want to outspeed a 280 Pokemon. So we're going to put 60 EVs into speed. That reaches 281. This is what speed creeping is called. 281. This is going to allow us to run adamant Cinccino. And then, since we only needed 60 EVs in speed, this is going to free up 192 extra EVs. So you can throw 192 extra EVs into HP. That's 339 HP on your Cinccino, 317 attack adamant. So this is going to be a bulky attacker almost at some point now, to some extent. So this is a really good thing about drafting fast Pokemon with, like Talonflame, for example, fast and has decent defensive stats. Same with Hitmonchan, Silvally, definitely a great example. Sceptile, a perfect example. Definitely doesn't need 427 speed every time. Obviously, you might need it to outspeed some Scarfers. But yeah, you get the point here. So very strong options to speed creep by his offensive threats here, since they are so fast. Talonflame reaching 386, Mega Sceptile 427, Cinccino 361. So very, very, very good speed options. That is why it's an 8.5. So moving on though, we have hazards, which I scored an 8. Sorry guys, gotta write down the time that I talk about this so I can timestamp for you. So hazards, he doesn't have a lot of options to set up hazards, but he has a ton of options to remove hazards and reliable options. So he has 3 defoggers plus 1 rapid spinner, 1 rock setter, some decent reliable recovery in almost all of his Pokemon, and then his team really doesn't get bothered by rocks too much. I mean, Talonflame of course isn't going to appreciate rocks at all, but Hitmonchan, Sceptile, Steelix, things like that, and then Aromatisse with the Wish, or Draining Kiss, Quagsire with Recover, Chimecho with Recover, which I didn't mention actually. Chimecho does have really, really reliable recovery and recover. His team isn't bothered too much by rocks. Obviously, if there's a team that's bulkier and they're really pressuring with rocks or spikes or toxic spikes, this could become an issue, since his team isn't extremely bulky. At least his offensive options aren't. But those defoggers are Talonflame, Silvally Dark, and Chimecho. And then you have Rapid Spin in Hitmonchan. So very, very reliable options and very spread out, so he can really mix up what his team is, and free up a lot of move slots for his team to be more offensive if he needs it to be. So like I said before, having defog on Chimecho is going to free up offensive options for Talonflame, Silvally Dark, and Hitmonchan, and definitely Aromatisse. Wish passing on Chimecho is going to allow Aromatisse to be offensive, things like that. So very what would I say, if Steelix isn't there, rocks aren't being set up, but defog is probably on 1 or 2 Pokemon. I think rocks are pretty important, so having 1 more rock setter would have been nice, although it's hard to fit it on this team because his team is pretty balanced. Hard to kind of switch out a Pokemon for another rock setter. It's unfortunate that he doesn't have another one. It's unfortunate that Quagsire doesn't have rocks, because I think that would have really helped. But that's why the hazards are at an 8 and not higher. But very, very strong hazard removal on this team. And then last but not least, we have momentum. So this is the weakest part of his team, I find, and this is where I find it gets a little bit clunky. You have U-turn in Talonflame, U-turn in Cinccino, and U-turn Parting Shot in Silvally Dark, and then you have Healing Wish as well in Chimecho. So where it gets a little clunky is the U-turning. While he can U-turn into defensive options, he doesn't really have anything that he's going to be volt switching, U-turning, that's going to be accumulating a ton of chip, he isn't going to be U-turning between Silvally Dark and Talonflame consistently, right? Generally, this momentum is going to be coming from Sceptile wall breaking / cleaning / sweeping, You know, this momentum is gonna be coming from his setup Pokemon if brought as setup. The thing about this team is it can be brought two different ways. Lots of setup, since he has lots of setup options, or this like slow, you know, painful loss, where he's got all these defensive options with pretty reliable recovery in Chimecho, Quagsire, Aromatisse, Talonflame, and then, you know, decent recovery in Hitmonchan and Mega Sceptile as well. Basically wear you down until you just can't out-recover him. Or like I just said, setup. So you have setup in Chimecho, Cosmic Power, Stored Power, SD in Silvally, Bulk Up in Hitmonchan. You have Nasty Plot / Calm Mind in Aromatisse, Swords Dance in Mega Sceptile, and Swords Dance / Bulk Up in Talonflame. And then, you know, you have your standard, you know, Iron Defense, Body Press. But that's very, very easily blocked by, you know, Ghost types, right? So, or Fairy types. That's where that momentum is going to come, because all of those options that I just mentioned can easily get out of hand and snowball out of control into a win. So if not prepared for, that's where that momentum is coming from. Even at a 7, not the highest, but still that is stuff you got to prepare for, and it is going to lead him to wins in terms of the momentum and carry his momentum. You know, maybe he gets a Cosmic Power, Stored Power out, takes out 2 Pokemon, Chimecho finally goes down to Toxic or something like that. That's really helping his momentum, and, you know, taking out options that the opponent generally would want to keep. Overall, great team. I think it's one of the most balanced out here. Might not look good at face value, but I definitely think this is a pretty good team if you look more deeply into it, especially with that Chimecho, Hitmonchan, Aromatisse, and Talonflame, Mega Sceptile. I mean, there's so much more to them than just look out, you know, what we may think about them. But yeah, we'll see you guys on number 23, and I really appreciate the people that have been watching and enjoying. So, see you guys soon.